Thanks so much, guys. Nice to see you up here. So we did a little quick show of hands there, and it seems as though this is, of course, a technical stage, and that's why we're talking about some of the technicalities, one of which is permission versus permissionless blockchain. And I think there's a slight leaning towards more people not knowing exactly what that is versus those who do. So we're going to just kick off, I think, by figuring out what the difference is. Robert, perhaps we could start with you. If you could just give us a rundown
I'll try to explain it. Permissionless blockchain is that everybody, by downloading the wallet or any other technical node, can join that blockchain without of any permission by external parties. While permissioned blockchains are the ones that there are different parties that give you a permission to access it. So before you register, you need to get a special permission or special allowance to use it. So that's the difference. One is without of permission, and one is there is somebody that, when you access it, gives you a permission to access it.
Tony, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think that's a perfect intro. That's exactly
okay,
it,
so let's just kick off by finding out a bit about what you guys do. Robert, let's start with you. You're COO of Billon Group. Talk to us a bit about Billon Group and your role there.
I think COO, everybody knows what COO is doing, so I'll concentrate more about Billon itself. We have our own DLT blockchain platforms that we develop from scratch using the blockchain cryptographs and mathematicians, mainly out of Poland. This blockchain does few things, but we started with digitalizing national fiat currencies, where in our DNA we always have regulatory compliance. So we started digitalizing them using the e-money regulation out of Europe, obtained 2 licenses in UK and then Poland, proving that DLT technology doesn't need to wait for the new regulation to operate on the highly regulated market. Now we are more concentrated on data exchange and data privacy, again with the regulation being completely in our DNA. So our data exchange platform is fully GDPR compliant. We are patenting, for example, how to forget on blockchain, how to execute right to be forgotten. Our biggest clients are enterprise clients in the space of insurance and utilities, where we digitalize a contractual management process. So user will be able to sign a contract with a utility company fully on chain.
Okay.
So we put entire documents on chain, and that capability will be used there. And the second, probably largest, our project, we are working together with EU commissions, with EBSI, EPSI project, where we are working with them on designing a future blockchain architecture for Europe.
Brilliant. And Tony, Rad NFTV, you're the CEO. Tell us a bit about your company, where, of course, you are the big cheese.
Yeah, that means I also do the dishes and sweep the floors. So, I mean, we're in the streaming business, so basically we saw an opportunity to use blockchain and, manage one of the most difficult parts of the media business, which is legal and accounting. and so that starts to dovetail into a number of different things. Just by example, if you buy a movie, for example, the terms of that purchase and all the people who created that movie can have royalty splits in a smart contract that's easily visible and auditable. And then, of course, you can pay money into that smart contract and it will automatically be split out to all the people who should be paid. And if you contrast that with the traditional system of legal and accounting for the media business, it could be potentially a year or two before you get paid if you're an actor in a movie or a writer or something. And that chain, if you think about the music business, has the same problem. But if you look at somebody subscribes to Spotify, that money gets sent to Spotify, Spotify does all of their accounting. It takes time to do that. They then send that back to the label aggregators, and which they take their little cut. They then send that on to the record labels, which then take their cut, and then they send that on to the artist. A lot of cases, by the time the artist receives that money, it takes a long time. There's also a lot of accounting in the middle of that can be wrong. And, an artist that may not be able to afford an auditor, they might be getting underpaid, and they just can't see inside all of those boxes that, along the way of people getting their hands on their money. And so, we saw that as an issue in the media business where it's a big, messy legal and accounting and ownership and payouts and royalties and resales, and all of those things can be wrapped up into a smart contract and be very transparent and auditable. And so, so we have a streaming platform that integrates Web3. Started out on Ethereum initially, and then integrated with BSV, and are working on some cross-chain things. So. That's how we use it. We're on the permissionless side of things.
Okay, that's interesting. And Robert, would you say that you're more on the permissioned side or the permissionless side?
I'm definitely a permission person.
Okay, good. So we've got a bit of a conflict going on, which is perfect.
And let me tell you why. I think there are 3 reasons why permissioned have definitely a large stake in the blockchain space. First of all is regulation. I believe a lot has been said over here about MiCA and other regulations that are coming. If you want to identify your users, identify where you are sending assets, who produces the assets, permissioned is probably, if you want to keep it on the blockchain architecture, not give it to the higher level up, permissioned is the way to go. Even if you think about current, so the second reason, even if you think about the current crypto assets trading, so Bitcoins, Ethers, and so on, majority are traded anyway through the exchanges. In order to become right now a client for exchange, you need to KYC yourself. So that exchange anyway gives you a permission to operate on this. So majority of the users are already used to permissioned side of it. And there is a third reason, which I believe is the most important. If you want to use a blockchain as an enterprise solution to solve a complex digitalization enterprise solutions, then majority of the companies, whatever you do, the business processes, identify different actors in that process, in that business process. If there are different actors, that they mean that they have a different permissions to operate on something, on some objects. That means that completely implies that if you want to mimic something that, I don't know, contractor may signing remotely contracts using a blockchain architecture, I don't know, corporate payouts using e-money, then there are different types of actors, what implies basically the permission side of it.
Okay, let's hear the other side. Why do you choose permissionless in general?
Well, I mean, I actually think there are use cases for both.
Both, yeah.
So I'm a believer that you just pick the right tools for the job.
Yeah.
A lot of what we do from an ingestion perspective and storing metadata and payout information on chain is to allow the creator to set those terms themselves. Put that into a system, and then we can't change it out from under them. And so, you create kind of a system that is, to some degree censorship resistant, and no kind of central authority can take things away from you. If you buy a movie, for example, on like Apple, through iTunes, the iTunes store, if Apple really wanted to, they can take that movie away from you. They just can. And same thing with Amazon, and there have been instances where they've done that. And so we're a big believer in the underlying protocol staying permissionless, and then putting the permissions layer in kind of the layer 2, application. So that's similar to what centralized exchanges do when you sign up for Coinbase or any other exchange. You enter your information, that goes into a database that they control. But your wallets, your Ethereum wallet, Bitcoin wallet, whatever, those all operate based on whichever protocol you're using. Yep. So they layer those two things together in a way that allows the underlying system to remain permissionless, censorship resistant. I can do whatever I want with my money when I want to. Likely what I'm going to do is log into this platform and manage it all here all the time. Mm-hmm. But if I want to, I can take it. I can take it with me. And the media business has a similar, we used to do that when we would go buy DVDs and, at the store. If you want to take those DVDs with you or give them to somebody else, or, you could do that and nobody could stop you. And so, there's a lot of value in the media space to have a similar paradigm with what happened with blockchain with money. Blockchain and media can benefit from the same thing.
Okay, so for sort of media and entertainment, it seems as though it lends itself much better to permissionless. But Robert, what are some examples for our audience? Because I imagine there are people from lots of different industries here, and perhaps they're trying to understand whether they should be looking more towards permissioned or permissionless blockchains. What are either some of the industries that lend themselves better to permission versus permissionless, or even just what are the factors that people should consider when choosing which route to go down?
I don't believe that there is a single solution to a single problem.
Okay.
Right? So I can tell you what we are doing.
Yeah.
And so I'm a true believer of a self-sovereign identity. So I am a true believer that users should control their own data. I believe that's a big change that will happen eventually, that no Google's, Apple's, or Facebook will transfer all of our data centrally, but blockchain can change that. And actually, it is not down to permission versus permissionless blockchain to do that. I'll give you an example, two things that we've done on our DLT that is permissioned. So first of all, if you want to use our e-money solution for corporate user, the user needs to KYC itself, right? Because that's the requirement if you want to operate on the e-money market. So the financial institution KYC'd the user. Before doing that, the limits that he can transfer in Europe, I think it's right now around 50 euros. So they can transact up to 50 euros. Before that, they have to be identified. The financial institution KYCs the person, and then suddenly we are changing their certificate and their permission on the system. They still hold all of the data, but they can do more. They can transact beyond that number, still peer-to-peer, fully controlling the data. So that's the one use case. The second use case that we are mainly working right now with it is to make sure that we can digitally sign the contracts, being a large utility, telco, insurance company, with the end users, making sure that everything is recorded on DLT. There is another regulation called durable medium in Europe that at the moment that I exchange the contract with me as a personally, as an individual with the large company, that large company should lose the ability to modify that contract. So whenever it is on a DLT, it is actually fully not modified, permanent, and you can see the whole history, what has happened to that contract. At the moment that the user gets a permission to access it, again, there is this KYC process in it, he has the access to all of the contract that he signed with the multiple parties, controlling by his self-sovereign identity. There is, no matter, it's no Billon, not the utility company, nor any other party that can take it away. It is distributed among other participants on that system. Having said that, on the other side, you have those big participants, and they are the only ones that can publish the large volume of the document. So they have a permission to publish that large volume of individual contracts. So to make sure that the process is available. So that's the two use cases that we use that permissioned approach on our DLT.
Okay, Tony, what do you think? If people in our audience are trying to think about which route to go down, what do you think they should be considering? Are there certain industries? I know obviously you're focused on entertainment, but perhaps you have some other examples where permission might be more appropriate, or other examples where permissionless is best.
Well, I mean, if it's an organization or a group of organizations that work together to look at the same data set, and they don't need things like, payouts for operating a node in the network, like Ethereum or Bitcoin. If you operate a validator on a network and you use your compute resources, you'll get paid to do it as a participant. But if it's in an enterprise, you don't need that layer at all. And so you can do things like, implement a much faster transaction system, have a lot more control for compliance and things like that. So, supply chain, a nut farmer grows nuts and then sends that over to, a factory that's going to combine that into making cookies, and then they're going to ship that to a distributor, and then they're going to send that to a grocery store. And then at some point, somebody gets sick from one of those things, and they have to trace back where all the food came from and how it and so that would be a group of distributors that all adopt the similar system, but may not need to be seen by the outside world because all of the deals need to be confidential and private and unchangeable, and so you end up with this kind of private ecosystem. We see the same thing in the media space where a use case that we've had a conversation with a pretty big media company, pretty advanced discussions, but essentially take an organization like Disney, for example, and they have multiple business units. They have Marvel and Lucasfilm and Pixar, and they have consumer products and game division, and they have all of these different things, and they're all doing deals between themselves. But the businesses operate as different businesses, but they all sit under the same company. So it's a kind of sphere of trust. But they do need kind of the immutability of contracts such that, like, if a piece of content is moving through the system, one owner has a final version of it over here, and then they transfer it to a different place. They want to make sure that intellectual property does not change at all. And so that would be under the same organization that would not need a permissionless blockchain. They would want absolutely people signing in with credentials that they know exactly who is doing what to what.
Yeah.
And that flows through to, the contracting process itself, where, they might be doing things, negotiating contracts that have red lines over it and back and forth, and then you get to a final contract that can't be changed. And everybody believes in that and signs off on it and, has trust in that system. So, there are definitely examples even in the media business that would, warrant a permissioned system. And then, on the flip side of that, of course, like we talked about already on the permissionless side. So they can work in concert. It just depends on what you're trying to do.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Okay, and so sort of on the topic of data, Robert, perhaps you could answer this one. How do they compare in terms of the availability of data and also on preventing data silos and also preventing a single point of failure? Is one superior to the other in any way, or are they kind of the same?
I think it's a different discussion, how you make a data available. It's much more of what kind of a consensus data distribution we're using, rather than what kind of an access you are providing to that blockchain. Again, there is certain implementation where I think we are much more closer. What you talk is whether we are monolithic or non-monolithic blockchain. BSV, it's a monolithic blockchain, meaning basically that all of the information is stored in all of the nodes. Billon DLT is non-monolithic, so we do not have, not all of the information is stored everywhere. However, whenever we run a test with our clients, or our clients run a test on our platform, until 1/3 of the nodes are up, all of the data is available. So I think it's much more of other mechanisms that you use in that chains in order to make both data availability, the performance, speed, transaction. I think it's nothing to do with the permission versus permissionless. It's a different topic on that DLT.
And what about sort of capital and operational expenditure, Tony? Do you think that they kind of roughly come in the same, or is permissionless a bit cheaper in any way in your experience? And was that something that you considered when you were making this choice?
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the great things about a platform like Ethereum or BSV or any Solana, any of those chains, is that they've been developed by a large group of people. They've been vetted. They've probably been hacked and patched, and but they become mature platforms that you don't have to build yourself and don't have to maintain, and they have gained the trust of everybody using them. And so, the expense of spinning something up like that yourself, if you're writing it from scratch, you need to hire all the developers and, pay for the infrastructure to run it and things like that. That's all kind of washed away in a permissionless system, and you can just pay fees into the network to operate it. So there is a cost associated with it, but, it's kind of a race to the bottom. Those costs are coming down. The flip side of that is obviously with any kind of, corporate permissioned infrastructure, the sky's the limit on the number of servers you could run and and engineers you need to hire to run it. So
of course.
There's a little bit more kind of DevOps risk potentially and security risk around operating your own blockchain. So you really need to have that kind of buttoned up.
Well, yeah, that's actually what I wanted to talk about, was the sort of security risk, Robert, because, if we look at the security model of permissionless blockchains like Bitcoin, for example, that's achieved through this public record of transactions. How do you achieve that same level of security and integrity through permissioned blockchains?
So far, we were quite successful in reaching out the enterprises, EU and so on.
Okay.
Obviously, we are not open source, at least not yet.
So you're working closely with
we run closely and
regulators?
work closely with regulators. Are not. They want to make sure that it is secure. They will not check for the security, but enterprise that implements a new solution will ask all of the questions and will perform the stress test, performance test, security audits. The same when working with EU Commission, they also, if to implement something, they really want to understand how it works, and they put a lot of effort on their side to understand it. It's like with open source, permissionless blockchain like BSV, Bitcoin, Ethereum, that push is more to the community rather than the enterprises, right? So that's the trade-off.
And just shifting focus a little bit, obviously for investors at the moment and going forward, ESG is huge and increasingly important with the challenge of global warming. I wanted to know if there's a difference in terms of energy efficiency between the two. What have you experienced, Tony?
Well, yeah, I think, Bitcoin obviously is not super efficient.
Yeah. It's had its critics.
Ethereum made some updates that certainly made it more efficient. And, I think with all of these things, any kind of new technology, it's grossly inefficient at the start, and it just gets more and more efficient over time.
Yeah.
So, do you develop a better system, for the next 100 years, and the first 10 years of it are painful, but the next 90 are great? I think that's kind of
Which year are we in?
I guess, whatever, we're 14 years in or something now. So, I think what we're seeing is real, there's real solutions trying to address that.
Okay.
And that comes with other things like thinking about how do we scale this, not just, in terms of the environment, but just from an efficiency of the protocol itself. So that development just takes a little bit of time. And, I'm sure the first gasoline powered car is, nowhere near as efficient as a Tesla.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even the electric vehicles today that are Teslas or, any EVs are not going to be as efficient as the ones in 10 years from now.
Of course.
Yeah.
Robert, what about you? Talk to us about the ESG side of things.
ESG side. I think Bitcoin did a lot of good things to the blockchain in popularizing what's going on right now to make it that technology in the mass market. However, at the same time, it harmed it in terms of everybody thinks that blockchain is extremely power consumptive. When we did, together with EU Commission, one of the top things, because it is the EU Commission, was during the evaluation was to prove the sustainability of that solution. And I think when we ran it, we were 15 times more efficient than Visa, at least what they propose, which is a central system. And even other blockchains that, I don't know, Hyperledger Besu, Hyperledger Fabric, that we tested against were much more efficient than traditional client-server architecture. Because of a client-server architecture, that's why it is so, that's a different discussion. And when we selected our permission blockchain against those two, we were 2.5 times more efficient than them, right? So, and the efficiency grows with the objects we are progressing. Again, blockchain architecture or blockchain solution, the way how we distribute data really have an impact on how efficient the solution is.
Yeah.
So the next generation blockchain, I think they are already over that topic of most of them do not have a mining anymore.
Yeah.
So the process that eats up a lot of energy as a mid-sized country are anyway gone.
Okay, Robert, Tony, it's been great chatting to you. I'm wondering if anyone in the audience might have a question. If you do, feel free to raise your hands. We've got one here at the front. The squishy square is heading your way.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm Satyam Gupta.
Hello.
I run a blockchain forum as a think tank in India. Mm-hmm. And my question is, of course, you were talking about energy efficiency. So from Bitcoin, proof of work, and then proof of stake. So I want to know if you can clarify, like this BSV which we are talking. So in which category it will come? Because it is also a Bitcoin Satoshi vision. So whether it has all the ills of Bitcoin as far as energy efficiency is concerned, or it has solved that problem and improved upon the energy efficiency angle.
Robert, I think that was for you.
I'm sorry, I cannot comment about BSV. I can comment about my platform.
Okay.
Just, if I remember, a single transaction cost me 0.0 milliwatt hours per transaction. That's 15 times less than the Visa itself. So that topic is gone. Obviously, the issue comes whenever we are talking about the proof of work, when there is a lot of calculation what it is. From my understanding, I'm not a BSV guy. Because BSV in the single block puts a lot of transaction external, then on average that reduces that energy consumption. We do not consume. I mean, my DLT runs on mobile phones and doesn't burn them. So, and the consensus is reached on that mobile phone itself. So it's again depending on what ledger you are using. In EPSI project, I know together with us is IOTA that is designed to work on IoT devices which don't have too much energy at this. So I think it goes down to the implementation and the efficiency.
But are you using POW or POS as consensus mechanism?
Actually, we are using, depending what we do, different ones. So we are using variation of proof of stake, and for documents, on-chain documents, we are using proof of ordering.
Thank you. And you, any comment to yours?
I mean, like various different implementations of the consensus can mean that there are more cycles spent. So it could just kind of depends on what that implementation looks like. The amount of transactions that can fit into a single block. I think what the world is looking at as an option is proof of stake more than proof of work, just because it is more energy efficient. And then you can do things like if the number of nodes are reduced or the number of validations required are reduced, then you can speed up the network and speed up throughput without the need for so much work put into it. So I think BSV weaves in some of those things to make it faster and cheaper and easier to use and more energy efficient than something like BTC.
All right. Tony, Robert, thank you very much. We have got a few more questions, but sadly we have run out of time. So feel free to come and grab our guests after the session. You guys will be around today, right?
Yeah.
They'll be in the expo hall and hanging around. So I'm sure they'll love to have a quick chat with you later today. But let's give a big round of applause to our amazing panel.
BSV is more than another chaotic commodity craze. BSV blockchain can do more than just be a crypto investment. It can help you get more out of your games, share more of your art. BSV makes more things possible.